Our next guest is here to weigh in on the state of the race for the White House and the Senate, taxes, if there was another Trump, or if there's a Harris administration and more. Joining us is GOP Senator John Thune of South Dakota, the Minority Whip. Senator, it's good to see you.
Good morning, Joe.
We have people on quite a bit that are counting on gridlock. So I think that means that there is an assumption that the GOP is at least going to control the Senate. The House is up in the air, or possibly even leaning Democrat. Is that how you see it right now?
Well, a lot of it depends on the top of the ticket. You know, the House in particular correlates pretty closely to what how the presidential race performs. But we feel really good about where we are in the Senate, and I think the Senate is the quintessential check and balance in our democracy, and represents an insurance policy for people who are looking at what might happen in the House or in the presidential race. If we win them all, obviously, we're in a position to do some things from a governing standpoint that we need to get done.
If the Democrats win them all, they're in a position to
they are indeed, and
they're on the record for the filibuster's gone.
And that's a big concern. That not only changes the essence of the Senate, but it changes the country. And the Democrats have made it very plain that they will get rid of the filibuster. And then the list of horribles of things they would do if they did that should be of concern to people all across the country.
Even Joe Manchin, I think, pulled his or did not endorse Vice President Harris because of those
that issue. Yeah.
So, which races would you highlight in the Senate that Republicans said? How about, for example, Pennsylvania?
Well, Pennsylvania is a great example of just a very close, dead even race. We have a terrific candidate there who's run a great campaign. We feel optimistic about that one. Obviously, again, it has, we would need to see President Trump perform well at the top of the ticket in order to help our down ballot races, and Pennsylvania is a good example of that. But Dave McCormick has run an outstanding campaign. And we feel good about that one. I mean, obviously, you've got the states like West Virginia, Montana, Ohio, where we have a sort of a clear voter advantage, because Trump's going to win those states, we think, pretty handily.
You think Ohio you think Brown's in trouble?
Well, I do. I mean, I think at some point political gravity catches up with you. And again, we have a great candidate who now in the fall, the weight of the advertising is shifting back in his favor. All summer, our candidate was taking a lot of incoming fire, but now that race is, we're kind of at parity on the airwaves, it's starting to tighten up, and we think we've got a really good chance of winning there.
I've always wondered about internal polling versus external polling. Sometimes they're not even close. Do you have internal polling on all these races that's different than that? How does that work? Is it better?
Well, I think it's more accurate. I mean, obviously, your polling as a candidate is consistent over time. Use the same pollster, same methodology, same screen in terms of how which voters you're trying to reach and to acquire information. So I would rely more on that research. I think the public polls vary depending on the pollster and how they approach it, what their methodology is. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But if you're a candidate trying to make decisions about where to allocate resources, you trust your internal polling, and you're doing that at this point in a campaign. You're polling every night, so you have a three-day rolling average. It gives you, I think, a clear sort of view into what the voters are thinking.
You don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know. These are going to be just your opinions, but we got 35 days, whatever it is. What are the wild cards between now and then? What do you expect? What does former President Trump need to do? What does Vice President Harris need to do? Tonight there's a debate between the vice presidential candidates. What do you expect to see? Is it important?
Well, I think it is. Obviously a lot of people will be paying attention to it, and I think that what we need to do is we've got to prosecute the issue set. The issue set is very favorable to us because that's inflation, that's a broken, open southern border, that's global instability. I think that the Democrats have to own those issues, and certainly tonight, Tim Walz, as his, representing the Biden-Harris administration, will have to answer, I think, some very hard questions about that. The Democrats obviously are going to want to shift and pivot to other issues that don't involve having to defend their record on 20% increase in groceries and 40% increase in energy, which I think is hitting the pocketbooks of a lot of Americans, and that in most cases is the issue on which Americans vote. So if the Republican candidates, and the president and the vice presidential candidates on our side can prosecute that case over the course of the next 35 days, I think we have a really good chance of winning. If the Democrats can divert and distract away from that, that's obviously got to be their plan.
Do you think that, well, I think perhaps tonight we see some pretty effective prosecution of that case from Senator Vance. We'll see. I don't know. The moderators there might be a few abortion questions, I would think, from him, and probably some cat lady questions. What is it, CBS? Which is it?
I don't know.
I think it's CBS. I think it's Margaret
You're not paying
Brennan.
attention,
It's Margaret Brennan and Nora
O'Donnell.
Yeah. So we'll see. I can't be worse. Couldn't be worse than the last. But what can Trump stick to the message? I guess that's where my question was. Can former President Trump prosecute that case? I think J.D. Vance will prosecute it very effectively, but President Trump does seem to get bogged down in some, I don't know, retribution or things that happened in the past, the last election. I think he's got a case to make that sometimes it's hard to get through all the other stuff.
Well, he has a case to make. J.D. Vance will make it very well tonight, as you point out. And whether or not the moderators, I mean, obviously they're going to try and hit him on issues where they think he'll be on defense, but he will be very effective. He is articulate. He is smart. He understands what's at stake in this election and how to talk about the issues in a way that resonates with voters. The president needs to do the same thing, and that requires a certain amount of discipline because it's easy to as they throw shiny objects out there, the Democrats that is, to get off subject. But if he stays focused, disciplined, and on message, I think this is going to be it's going to be a clear choice for people. And I've always maintained elections are about differences, and the choices this time around couldn't be more clear when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the border, when it comes to national security. Voters are going to have a very clear choice about the future they want, the direction they want to see the country headed.